Welcome back, everyone. Dan Vega here, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom. Today we're talking about the newest release of Spring AI, which is 1.0.0 Milestone 1. Now, I was in Barcelona for Spring I/O when this came out and got to see firsthand some of the new features, and I have to say I'm really impressed. I thought Spring AI was an easy project to use before. Now that I've seen some of the new APIs and the new way to do things, it's so much easier, and I'm a big fan of everything that this team is doing. Once I got home from Barcelona, I immediately went through all of my repos, updated all the code, and just really surprised like how easy it was to upgrade, one, but two, again, just for me, a lot easier to read, a lot easier to use, and I'm excited about this. So what we are going to do today, I'm going to show you the release notes for 1.0 Milestone 1. We'll quickly look through there just at a surface level. I want you to have this so you can kind of dig in a little bit further. But what we're going to do is create a new project and use a few of these. I'm going to show off a couple of these. I can't go through every single thing right now, but we will. It's also important to note, I have a bunch of videos on AI on this channel. So if you're interested, go back and watch some of those, specifically Spring AI. And I'm going to link to this video from those videos, because I know I've gotten some comments like, hey, the API has changed a little. Yes, it has, but those videos are still very relevant. They teach a specific topic like prompts or how to get started with Spring AI. Just a few things have changed. So I'll link from those videos to this one, just kind of showing the updated APIs. With that, let's head over to the release notes here. This was released back on May 30th of 2024. And again, we'll talk quickly about some of these and then we'll dive into a project. So the chat client fluent API. Now, if you're familiar with other client classes in Spring, like the web client, the REST client, the JDBC client, this is going to feel very familiar. We start with a builder. That's how we get an instance. We can do some things with that builder, like setting some defaults. And then we can go ahead and get an instance of that chat client. And then we can use the Fluent API. So before, we had to do a couple different things to like create a prompt template, make the call, then kind of figure out what output we want to get back. Everything is here in this Fluent API, and I'm a huge, huge fan of this. Another big thing was we had these output parsers before 1.0. And if you wanted to take the response from an LLM and turn it into a type, there were ways to do that. For me, it was a little bit more verbose. This way is way easier to do. So all we got to do is declare, in this case, a record. And instead of calling .content to get a string back, we call .entity and we get a type back. So this is really, really cool. So those are a few of the things I want to show off. And to do so, we're going to start by creating a new project over at start.spring.io. Go ahead and fill out some metadata. I'm going to say dev.danvega, hello, M1, and I'm going to use Java 21. And the only dependencies that I'm going to need are web and OpenAI. Again, this isn't going to be a complete introduction to Spring AI. You need an OpenAI API key. If you want to learn more about that, I'll link to the Spring AI introduction video, which we went through and took a look at that there. So if you have an open API key, great. If not, just watch, follow along, and then maybe we could come back and do this a little bit later. So with that, I'll generate the project. I'll open this up in my favorite IDE, which is IntelliJ Ultimate Edition, but you can open it up in whatever IDE or text editor you are most productive in. With that, write some code, friends. All right, so if you try and run this application right away, you are going to get an error, and it's going to tell you, hey, you need an API key. I don't have one of those, so I cannot talk to OpenAI without an API key. So we got to go ahead and set that first. Let's go ahead and do that in our resources application.properties. I'm going to say OpenAI API key is equal to, now I've set up an environment variable. If you want to just hard code that string in there for now, that's great. Just do not push this. Even GitHub will not let you push this. It has some blockers against doing so. But you want to make this an environment variable, so you can do so. Whether it's exporting it on your operating system level, you can come in and go to your edit configuration. You can go into something like your environment variables and then just go ahead and set it here if you want. There are ways to make this happen. So we need our API key. We also need our model. We want to set our model here. I'm going to say that I want to use GPT-4o. the latest and greatest. I find it to be pretty fast, pretty efficient. So I enjoy that particular model. So with those set, now we can go ahead and run our application. Hopefully we don't get any errors. We don't, and our application is ready to go. So I'm going to create a couple different classes here. Let's start with a chat controller, which can basically take in any message. So this is going to be a REST controller, and we're going to end up talking to OpenAI's GPT-4 in this chat controller. Now, the first thing we need to do is get an instance of the chat client. So private final chat client, and we're going to get this through constructor injection. But if we look at this chat client, there is a builder, and this will get auto-wired in for us by Spring. So I'm going to call this builder, and let's call this builder, and then we can say build. So now on this, that's all you really got to do to get started. You have an instance of the builder, but if we go ahead and look at this, you can see that you can set a lot of defaults here on this chat client. Now I'm doing this in this class. You can create a bean and a configuration class somewhere and then use this throughout your entire application, but maybe I just need this particular chat client for this chat controller. So one thing you can do is set something like a default system level message. So there are user messages, there are system messages, and system messages give us this kind of overarching context of what this AI assistant is going to help us do. So I'm going to set a silly example here, but it kind of shows you that this is how it's going to act no matter what query that it gets, right? So I want to say you are a loud assistant that responds with all capital letters. So just a silly example, but now it understands like the context. No matter what question or inquiry we have for the LM, it is going to respond in all capital letters. So now we can go ahead and set our first get mapping here. So I'm going to say get mapping to the root. We can do that. And then I'm going to say, let's go ahead and use string. Let's say chat, and then we're going to take in a request param, which is going to be a string message. So anything we want to ask it, we can pass into here. So now what we want to do is talk to GPT-4o. The way that we do that is by using the chat client. So we say return chat client, and then we're going to give it a prompt. From there, we're going to say, all right, what do we want to do? We want to pass in a user message. So what is the message? The message is whatever we're passing in here in the string. And then we're going to say, I want you to go ahead and make a call out to that LLM. Then we get to decide what do we want to do with the response. There are different options. You can get an entire chat response back. That chat response will contain metadata about the response, including the response that you can get at. But in most cases, I just want a string back, and you can do that by calling .content. Now again, this is very easy to read. This is pretty simple to do. I just like how this Fluent API works, and we'll see some more examples of things you can do with it, but at a basic level, this will work. So now if we run our application again, and actually I'm just going to leave this at the root. I'm going to go ahead and rerun this application. Now you need some type of HTTP client to test this out. You can actually, this is a GET request. You can go in the browser if you want, but IntelliJ has an HTTP client built into it, or you can use something like Postman. You could use curl if you really don't like yourself or you really remember all the commands for curl. I never do. I use this program called HTTPIE, which just makes calling, it's like curl, but a little bit easier to use, more readable if you ask me. And you do that by saying HTTP once you have it installed, and now I'm making a call to localhost 8080, and I got to pass a message in. So this is the way you pass in a request parameter. In this case, I need to ask it something. So let's use the typical one that I've been using on this channel. We like to get jokes, right? So what is, tell me a good dad joke about bankers. All right, let's see what it comes back with. You see it's pretty quick, and you see that it's in all capital letters because we set that system level context. Why did the banker switch careers? He lost interest. Good one, good one, good one. Cool. So that's a pretty simple example. Let's say that we had another one here. Let's say get mapping. And this was a jokes API. And we just asked a joke, but let's do it again. And in this case, I am going to have a request parameter. And I'm going to have a topic as an argument. And what I want to do is I want to ask it a dad joke about some topic, whatever topic gets passed in. So we see we have something similar like this, right? But from a message standpoint, I need to be able to display a message in text and replace that topic with whatever topic gets passed in as an argument. So if we look at this, we are actually able to use a lambda here, right? So if we look at user, there is one of these chat client requests that takes in a consumer of user spec. So a consumer is actually a functional interface. That's why we can go ahead and use that lambda expression there. Then user spec has some methods on it for passing in media. Mainly passing in media there. And then this implements something called a prompt spec, which allows you to pass in things like text and params. So that sounds just like what we need. So what I can do is say user.text, and then the text that I could put in here is tell me a dad joke about, and now we can use our topic. And then we can say, okay, I need to replace a param. The key is the topic. And what are we replacing it with? Whatever that argument is to this method, which also happens to be a topic. So we do that. Here's our user message. We're calling the LLM, and we just want to get a string back. Pretty simple and straightforward. Again, very readable. Now I can come up here and let's clear this out. And I can say localhost 8080/jokes. Is it joke or jokes? It is jokes. And I'm going to pass a topic in there. So I'm going to say topic equals, and we'll say the topic is dogs. So now it should be a joke about dogs. Why did the dog sit in the shade? Because he didn't want to be a hot dog. Cool. So that is a really awesome. That talks about, showing off these kind of defaults that we could set at these, at least for the system message, using the builder on the chat client and getting an instance of that chat client, and then using this nice Fluent API. So that's really nice. One other one I'm going to show you is the exact example that we saw in the release notes, or the blog post, which was around kind of structured content, structured output, right? So I'm going to create a package here. I'm going to call this output. Inside of output, we're going to create a new Java class. We're going to call this actor films. And this is going to be a record. And this is going to take in a string for the actor and a list of string in the actor's movies. So this is the type that we want to represent in our system. When we get something back from GPT-4o, we want it to be converted into this type, not just a string, not just a JSON string. We want this exact type back. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new class here. I'm going to call this the actor controller. And in this actor controller, this is going to be a REST controller. We're going to create a couple methods to kind of show this off. So the first thing I'll need is that chat client. So chat client, we'll get this through constructor injection, builder. I'm going to call this builder. All right. The first method that we're going to talk about is one that doesn't use any structured output, right? So I'm going to paste this in just so we don't have to watch me type, but I want to get the films for the actor Anthony Hopkins in year 2010 just as a string. So let's see what kind of result we get from that just by running that example. So let's go back to our terminal and we'll do this 8080 films. Was it by string? Just films a string. So if we do this, we should be pretty quick. I said 2010 because if I just let it go, it would be forever. But okay, we get this back. So in 2010, there's this text here. Here's the name of one film. You can see there's like the role, the director, the synopsis. Here's the second film. And this would go on and on if we didn't put 2010 in there. There would be a lot of content that came back. This is great, but I want to be very specific. I want to make sure that the output that we're getting back looks like this. All I care about is the actor, and I want a list of strings for that actor. This is not giving me that. In a normal Java application without Spring AI, I would have to take that output and then somehow convert that into a type. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a lot of fun for me. So we're going to go about this a different way. We're going to say /films, and we're going to say we want to return that actor films type that we had. And so we'll call this get actor films, right? And now we're going to use the chat client. So chat client dot prompt. User is going to be the user message. Let's say the same thing. Generate. Oops, I am in the wrong class, huh? Let's not do that. Let's do that here, Dan. So generate a filmography for the actor Anthony Hopkins. Now, I'm not going to limit it to 2010 because I don't need to, because I can get back all of that, but I'm not going to get all that other fluff as part of the response. Again, we're just going to call, but instead of calling content now to get a string back, I want to call entity and pass it a type. And that type, as you guessed, is going to be actorfilms.class. And that should give us exactly what we are looking for. So let's go ahead and rerun this. We'll just go to /films this time. So let's clear this out. Come on, Dan, let's type today. So let's go films. And now what we should just get is the actor and a list of movies as strings. So we see that we get an actor and we get movies. Here's our list of strings and all the movies Anthony Hopkins was in. Oh, that is so cool. Again, just something that easy. This is where the power of using a project like Spring AI really comes to shine, because having to take that response and somehow convert it into a type you can use in your application doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. So I'll paste in one more example just to kind of show you what's going on here. And in this case, I want to get a list of those actor films. So what I'm saying here is, let me close this, generate a filmography for the actors Denzel Washington, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Tom Hanks. Instead of passing in the entity actor films, I'm basically using that new parameterized type reference. If you've been around Spring, you've seen that before when you want to get a collection of those things. So that's what we'll use here. So let's go ahead and rerun this. And then what we'll do is we'll go back to the terminal. And now what we'll do is we'll say films list. And this might take a second. There's a lot. These three actors have a lot of films. So still pretty quick though. But you see we get a list of actor films. And each actor film has an actor and a list of movies. And so there's Leonardo and then there's Tom Hanks. Now, I believe this is not a full list, so we could probably get a little bit deeper at like a system level. So make sure you have an exhaustive list, but we won't do that now. All right, I want to show you one more example before we kind of wrap this up. And this is an example of, let's start with a new controller, actually. I'm going to call this the stream controller. And let's go ahead and get another instance of our chat client. So private final chat client, dot builder. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to create a get mapping for something called stream. And at first this is going to return a string. I just want to show this off without using streaming first. So let's say we return a chat client dot prompt. The user message is going to be, I am traveling to Kansas City next week. What are 10 of the best barbecue joints in the city? Oh, that barbecue is so good. So then what we'll do is we'll just call off to the LLM and we'll get our string content back. So let's go ahead and refresh this, rerun this. And I'm going to go over to my terminal and I'm going to say HTTP localhost 8080/stream. And that was not found. Git mapping/stream. This would help, Dan. REST controller. Let's go ahead and refresh that and go back to the terminal, and we can probably run that same command now. And now this might take a second, depending on what it's going to respond with. In other examples I've seen, like give me 10 places I'm going to New York City or Toronto, it has a lot more text that comes back. But even that was kind of a lot, right? So it Kansas City is renowned for its exceptional barbecue scene. I couldn't agree more. So it comes back with 10 places that you must go. Oh man, all these places look amazing. So, but they're not just places, right? There's also some text in here. But if I was a user on some type of front end of the application and I was waiting that long, I would not really know that something's happening. And I don't know that I want to look at a little spinny object that's just going around and around. So we can improve this user experience, right? First off, we can go ahead and say that we want to return text as it is sent to us. So one way you can do that is we can come in here and we can say that, hey, we want to return a flux of strings, right? And then instead of calling, which is blocking, it's going to wait for the entire response to be ready to return it. We can use .stream. So just two small changes there. I'm going to rerun the application. Whenever you use an HTTP client like HTTP/IE or Curl or whatever client you're using, there's a way to say, hey, what I expect back is a stream of content. And as you get it, go ahead and send it back to me. You can do that in HTTP/IE by using the --stream. And I'm going to say localhost 8080/stream. And as it starts to run, we start getting those responses immediately. We don't have to wait for all of that content to come back, right? So this is really good. This is improves that user experience. A big fan of that. All right, so that's what I wanted to show off. I'm really excited about this new release 1.0.0 milestone 1. All the new features in it. We took a look at a few. Please go through the article that I will link in the description below. But I think what I'm more excited about is just that we're starting to get to pretty much a stable API. Now things are going to change, but you know, if you've been following the Spring AI project, there have been a bunch of changes, a bunch of additions, removals. I think we're kind of landing on what the API is going to look like, and I'm a big fan of it. Everything we went through today, so easy to get started with, building intelligent applications with Spring AI, and I'm really excited about the future of this project. So, hey, if you have any questions about Spring AI, please do me a favor, leave them below. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. But you know what time it is, friends. If you found value in this video, do me a big favor, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, happy coding.